how big of a deal is it that Hulk Hogan is expressing interest in coming to WCW here in spring of 1994?
Well, it's huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, when you've built a company that has exploded like WWF, and that's your center point, in your mind, you think there is no way Vince will ever let him leave. He will make it right, whatever that number is.
He'll figure it out, right?
Yeah, they will work this out, because I don't think Hulk will want to leave, because that setting only exists with WWF.
Do you remember when you personally heard that Hogan was interested in coming to the company? Do you remember anything about this time period?
Not sure about it.
You weren't buying it.
I just kept thinking he was using that as, because
a bargaining chip.
Bargaining chip it would be, yes.
Yeah.
Because, Ted Turner had the money. It wasn't like he did, it couldn't happen. I was looking at more on the side that Vince would work it out with Hogan. It was just, they're using it as a bargaining chip.
Well, we're going to discuss in some upcoming episodes, but Flair was instrumental in bringing Hulk to the company. Do you remember any conversation with Rick concerning him trying to help Bischoff sign Hogan?
Well, yeah, because Rick knew he would work with Hogan. It was going to help the company. It was going to help Rick. Rick could see the benefit in working with Hogan as a flagship for WCW and what that would do for business. Yeah, we talked about that. I was still a little skeptical, but
yeah, because you got to think too, as a wrestler, you got to go. It's where do we fall in the pecking order? But Arn, you got to be thinking, man, bigger houses, bigger pay-per-view buys, but you're under a set contract. So do you necessarily think about it that way, or what are your thoughts business-wise?
I was thinking more, they're not going to go around and start giving guys raises or anything like that. What I thought about was it's going to strengthen the company going forward for being in business for years to come, long term.
I got you. We talked about in April, Hogan signing with WCW, and the WWF had the first right of refusal. In May 16th, Observer, because that's where we're at here, Meltzer reported the following on the Hogan situation. As for Hogan, it is pretty much a done deal. Titan Sports informed WCW last week that they would not be matching Hogan's offer, although at this point, nobody expected anything different. Scenarios we hear are sketchy, but it is believed that Hogan will make a surprise appearance at the June 23rd Clash in Charleston, South Carolina, to lead to his July 17th pay-per-view appearance, which could be right in the middle of the steroid trial. The location of the Bash pay-per-view is not confirmed, but it will be in Florida, and the Orlando Arena seems to be most likely the place. But there it is, Arn. We discussed it last week or 2 weeks ago. WCW pushed all in for Hogan. WWF declines to match the offer. And as we know now, Hulk's first match is booked, Bash at the Beach, 1994. And we talked about Vince finally cutting ties with Hulk and what that looked like. But let's talk about the state of WCW here in May of 1994, because under Ted Turner's ownership, WCW failed to match the numbers and success that Jim Crockett Promotions enjoyed from 85 to 88. So here we come. The answer is Hulk Hogan, I guess, right? He's coming from the WWF in their minds. Where the production value second to none, as you said, marketing machine, you've talked about it. It's exactly that, a machine. Hogan was certainly the beneficiary of both that production and marketing for a decade as the leader of that roster. But let's Monday morning quarterback this for a little bit. Did WCW, in your mind, have the infrastructure to bring someone in like a Hulk Hogan as far as what his demand would be?
They were still, you got to look at WCW for what it was at that point in time. It was still a startup company. It wasn't Jim Crockett Promotions, albeit there were leftover talent that were featured with Jim Crockett Promotions, but it was still a startup company. I was a little worried, to bring a guy in like that, which, a year or even a year earlier, you would have said, well, that'll never happen. Vince will never let him go. He's there for life. But then when it happened, I remember having a thought, well, who do you have heated up that's hot enough, it's got enough heat, that's going to be something that is must see. You know what I mean? I ran down the lineup in my head. I just went, for a guy to come in like that, if he's going to wrestle right away, you need to have a guy that's on the other side of the ball that has got a ton of heat. So you want to come into my company? I'll take care of this, guys. You know what I mean?
I do.
Done in a heel way,
Yeah. Did you think at that time, though, Arn, that Hogan could and was worth, as you sit here and think about now, all that money? Do you think it was a wise decision back then for Eric to put those terms in a contract to bring Hogan in? It's easy for us to say now, oh yeah, NWO, everything that came of it. But I mean, let's kind of block that out of our mind if we can.
If you want to know the truth, and if I can remember, and my mind will save me here, I must have had the thought that I don't know that anybody's worth that.
It's a lot of money.
And I was aware of, who Hulk Hogan was. I'd been in the ring with him, prior to that when he was at his hottest. And, he double clotheslined me and Tully over the top rope, in the match that we're in with him, I was aware of who and what he was. No doubt. But still, that's, my gosh.
That's mind-numbing money. And to be fair, Arn, Hogan looks different now, right? The steroids, he's a lot leaner. This is a different decade. Some of that shine from the 80s momentum that he had with Vince, he's still Hulk Hogan, but he looks different. Some of that charm, especially me, as when I think of a child of the 80s, this is a different Hulk Hogan a little bit. Feels different. The music's different. So it does feel like a gamble.
Well, now you're talking about it as a fan, not as a co-host of where we're looking at the inside stuff. You're looking at this as a fan, and because you have to look at it differently. You know what I mean? He was not the 300-pound Hulk Hogan. Mm-mm. He was not the guy that you saw in the Rocky movie.
No.
And sometimes when you're so, I guess, the thing with Vince, all of his guys were superheroes. And when your body changes drastically like that, you're not a superhero anymore. You're still Hulk Hogan, but you're not this 300-pound guy that just steamrolled every monster heel that you had, because that was the way the structure was. You would bring a heel in, a monster, a one-man gang, whoever it was, these monster heels, and Hogan would get rid of them, squash them, cream them. They were done. Walking in the door 40 pounds lighter or 50 pounds lighter, I don't know what it was, even though he was still in shape, he's still tanned, still had all the charisma, and he's still Hulk Hogan. Somewhere in the back of your mind, you got to be going, what's different?
Yeah, he looks different. No doubt about it. You knew he was not the same massive, largest arms in the world, the flex and the impressiveness. And that's too ultimately why I think Arn, and we'll get, as we continue to walk through your career and WCW days, that's why the move and transition of making him heel was so genius. Those days were behind him as far as the red and yellow super fit baby face.